That's probably the worst start to a podcast ever.
Just
Followed by 5 seconds of silence. Yeah.
Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumlin, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week. Okay, well, last week we
I can't remember. What did we do last week?
we got into a pretty heated argument about The Dark Knight.
Oh, yeah. That was technically the other podcast. But yeah, we talked about The Dark Knight for a while.
It was the
yeah.
last week.
Okay.
Which is where the following comes in. I texted Nick and proposed the idea of each of us making like a top 100 movies, parentheses, that we've seen list. And you felt...
Good about it?
Did you?
Yeah.
You think it's a good idea?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Any concerns?
No, what would I be concerned about? Actually, no, I am very concerned about it. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Yeah. I don't think I've seen 100 movies.
I think you'd be surprised.
I think you're going to be surprised that
Why?
I've only seen a total of 50 movies in my life, probably.
The shock on my face. I was thinking about things like, I guess specifically, TV. I feel like that'd have to be like a top 25 list or something. Cause
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that.
I mean, how many TV shows have you seen to completion?
To completion?
Especially TV shows that you would consider like best TV shows of all time. Like I've seen all of Seinfeld. I've only seen 5 episodes of The Sopranos. I've seen all of Breaking Bad.
Okay, before we start this, quick, what's your top 5 TV shows of all time?
Top 5 TV shows of all time with Christopher Crumley.
And Nick Johnson. Thanks for the...
Well, you gonna do
including
your
me.
5 too?
Yeah, of course I'm going to do my 5.
This is just up the top of my head. Obviously, it's going to be varied in genre. I would say Seinfeld's on there. I would say The Twilight Zone's definitely on there. I would say The X-Files are definitely on there. Breaking Bad is. And then number 5, God, let me really try to think. What else is really fucking on there? Just a crazy TV show. Maybe I should throw... I don't know what to... For the last slot, I want to give some love to my British comedies, but I don't know if I should give The British Office the spot that it deserves for cultural impact because it birthed, obviously, The American Office, and
Boo.
you know, or if I should do, I don't know, like Peep Show or Extras, because I think Extras, I wouldn't say that's best movie of all time, so, no, not best movie, best TV show. Whatever, we'll say The British Office, I'll throw that on there. But it's more so like just a stand-in for representation's sake. I'm a very big fan of a lot of television shows from across the sea. But other than that, like, I pretty much said, like, probably 70% of the TV shows I've seen.
Yeah?
All of, right?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What about you?
Probably...
Because there's a lot in the last couple years where, like, oh, they have one season, then they get canceled or whatever. But I don't know if they'll necessarily make the list.
Yeah, I get that. Probably Twin Peaks.
Oh, fuck. I forgot to mention Twin Peaks. Okay.
Twin Peaks, Breaking Bad, Doctor Who, all of it, like all 50 years of it.
Mm.
I mean, Doctor Who counts for my British one, but for like British TV, I want to say, in my personal opinion, probably Flight of the Conchords would be my 3.
That's like New Zealand.
Actually, yeah, no, they're New Zealand and on American TV, so yeah, I'm gonna say Flight of the Conchords.
Okay.
How many is that?
That's Twin Peaks,
Breaking-
Doctor Who,
Breaking Bad,
Flight of the Conchords. You get one slot left.
Community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even mention Columbo. I'd definitely throw Columbo on there.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah. What else?
I feel bad none of mine are old.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, Doctor Who.
True. Oldest TV show in existence.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, it's the oldest running show.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to throw a cartoon on there, but I can't think of one.
Oh yeah, that'd be good too. Yeah, like I even think not only The Simpsons but Futurama should
Yeah,
have up on there.
Futurama was the one I was going to say.
Rick and Morty genuinely probably gets a slot, even though it's a little cringy to say right now.
My top 25? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. What else? Cartoons. And again, like it's one of those things where like you have to be a little objective, just a little. Like Family Guy probably even gets a slot. It's a huge, huge cultural thing.
Yeah.
You know.
I'd probably put like...
Because like half of the reason why something like The Wizard of Oz ends up on top 100 list is like obviously it's a fantastic movie. I love it, but also it's just so important culturally. You know, like part of the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
Like that it's got to go on there, kind of. You know.
I'd probably put... I'm torn between the Looney Tunes
Just in general.
and Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. Well, I'd give it to Looney Tunes over Tom and Jerry.
Like
personally.
cultural impact and stuff like that, yeah. But in my heart of hearts, I'm more of a Tom and Jerry guy.
Yeah, I always liked the Looney Tunes more growing up.
Yeah, me too. But I felt like Tom and Jerry was on more, and I saw way more Tom and Jerry growing up, so I have more of an affinity for it.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the times when I turned on Cartoon Network and that was on, I was always like, "Man, what is it? Sunday? Come on, give me a real cartoon."
Where's Beyblades at? Come on.
Yeah.
Would you put any of the cool Cartoon Network Renaissance shows on there, like Regular Show, Adventure Time, or
I'd try to
just
put
those
Adventure
two?
Time on there. I don't think Regular Show would necessarily get one. I don't know.
I've never seen Regular Show, but from what I
Yeah.
hear, people like it probably more than Adventure Time. For people who've
I
seen
like it
the
a
two,
decent amount. It's kind of like
just regular.
it's got a little more in common with like just movies from the 90s, kind of like Swingers or Clerks, where it's just about a couple of just regular Joes going through regular problems, you know. And it's very relatable, especially like, you know, if you're a teen in like the, 13 to like maybe even 18, 19 bracket. It's, you know, grown up, but not in the way that like regular show, or I mean, Adventure Time is.
Yeah.
You know. It's a little more humdrum. I like it, but I don't think I would give it a slot over Adventure Time. But I mean, on the topic of cartoons, I think Gravity Falls could get one easily.
I've never seen a second of Gravity Falls, but people always tell me it rips.
Yeah. What else could get a slot easily? Dugga. Over the Garden Wall is fantastic. I'd probably, that would definitely hands down make the 25 list. That one's a really, really neat thing. It's a really special thing.
Yeah, I've never seen that either.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says it, I think Over the Hedge. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
I don't, but I just remember the poster. Every time someone says Over the Garden Wall, I picture the Over the Hedge poster.
How do you feel about Shark Tale?
I nothing Shark Tales. I saw it once at like a parade festival thing. I mean, not a parade. A festival. They just like at the end of the thing, everyone sat on the hill and watched a movie, and for some reason they showed all 500 people Shark Tales. Okay, so you were talking about Shrek?
Oh yeah, Alicia was saying that that would easily make her top 100.
I haven't seen Shrek in probably since Shrek came out.
I think the Jinx would make it. That was something I was pretty bummed out about my top 100 list, actually, is that it doesn't include a documentary.
Oh, yeah?
And I feel like that's a decent enough legitimate genre that, like, probably should have gotten, like, one or two in
I
there.
can't even think what documentary we put on there. I love documentaries.
I thought about Super Size Me, but I knew for a fact that I'd get crucified if I tried to say that.
No, I'd let you have it.
Yeah. I kind of go to task for that one sometimes.
Rightfully so. I think it's solid.
Yeah. So anyways, there's some backstory.
There's some TV stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so where's this fucking list, Chris?
Yeah, it's in no particular order. Well, I mean, I guess it is in a particular order. It's in the order of me thinking of movies.
So number one's not your favorite movie?
No, by no means. No, absolutely not.
That's how my list is going to be. Absolutely. I can't be objective about it.
No, and I couldn't imagine ranking either. Because, like, how do you compare something like, I don't know, Raiders of the Lost Ark to, like, Clue or fucking Citizen Kane to fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or something, you know? I'll just give some honorable mentions real quick.
Okay.
I'm actually genuinely, like I said, these were fencers that I was like, these movies have enough going for them. They don't also need me to co-sign necessarily. They're fantastic. No disrespect. Nothing like that. You know what I mean? Absolute honorable mention to Star Wars A New Hope and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those two movies, nothing wrong with them.
Wow.
Love them. They're great. Wow, what?
I'm surprised Star Wars didn't make your list.
Yeah, like I said, it's no disrespect. It's just that, like, there was a certain point where I don't know how to put it other than, like, for some reason inside of me, I didn't want to necessarily put them on there because I abandoned pretty quickly the idea that this was a list of anything other than my top 100.
Yeah. But, I mean, I feel the way me and you have talked about specifically Star Wars A New Hope.
Yeah. Yeah, like, because like I said, I consider it akin to Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And Raiders is also a fantastic action movie. Nothing like it.
I'd say, I mean, we could talk about it probably more when it's on my actual list.
Yeah.
When it's on my list, not yours.
Well, I was filling in your words. I was finishing your sentence for you.
Fucked up.
What's that?
I said that's fucked up. We'll probably talk about it more when we get to my list, but I think Raiders is the best action movie, if not the only good one. There, I said
You think
it.
the only good one? Well, there's one that I would say is a contender in my opinion, but it's actually technically a Western. But I really think you should watch it. It's on my list. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say the numbers associated with these, but that's just to give us an idea of where we're at in the list. And that is not indicative of any of these movies' values. First movie I thought of was Taste of Cherry.
Okay.
Now, this is one of these movies where, like, obviously not every single one are we going to stop and, like, talk about, but there are definitely some that, like, I feel like I have something to mention about. I think you should check this movie out. It's part of, like, a movement in cinema for, like, absolute realism. Like, there's no soundtrack that isn't, like, also, like, what is it? Diegetic?
Diegetic.
Yeah, diegetic. And one of the other things that, like, really blew me away, it's such a small detail, but, like, there were multiple times during conversations between the actors that, like, ambient sounds of the city and, like, construction and shit like that actually drowned out what the actors are saying, and they'll have to repeat the lines for the other actors and stuff like that. But it's an Iranian movie. It's an Iranian, I think it's technically, like, their new wave. I think there are a lot of, like, you know, countries that kind of have, like the French New Wave is a very specific thing, right? But I think a lot of countries have their quote-unquote new wave.
Yeah.
And Iran's was centered around that, like the idea of realism. And just a quick synopsis is, like, it's a guy who's going around all night trying to convince somebody to take money from him to basically, like, come by in the morning and see if he's still alive after he, like, spends the night laying in a shallow grave on a hillside. And yeah, the movie is just like he picks up, like, a young kid, and then he picks up a young guy who's, like, in the army, and then he ends up, like, stumbling upon these guys that are, like, working, like, kind of like security kind of, I think, or something like that, at, like, a construction site. And they just have, like, kind of, like, long conversations about, you know, just, like, the meaning of life and, you know, morality and stuff. Because a lot of the people who, like, he asks, another big, like, contextual thing is that specifically suicide is very, very, it's obviously taboo in general, but it's especially taboo in, like, Iran, from my understanding, from the context that I was given about the film. So, like,
From your short period of time staying there.
yeah, so that was the context I was given about, like, why these people are so obviously against it. I mean, obviously probably same thing would happen here in America or whatever, but anyways, so Taste of Cherry. Number 2, Moonlight.
Okay.
Yeah, Moonlight is fucking out of control. That's one of those movies where, like, okay, let me make this grand statement about the top 100 list. One of the things that kind of bummed me out as I was making it was that so many of them boil down to, like, white man doesn't know how to outlet his negative feelings other than to pick up a gun and go get some fucking revenge, right? And so, like, this is a movie that I would say, in my opinion, again, I know this is a stretch, I know that this is crazy, but I think it's probably, like, as good as something like The Godfather or There Will Be Blood, The only difference being that it's not centered around, violence and aggression and stuff like that. It's this, very beautiful and poetic and well-paced, intimate story that you don't see often. You don't really see.
Fuck it, do these guys just ride motorcycles while we're doing a goddamn
I don't
podcast?
think they're motorcycles. I think they're just, dirt bikes or whatever.
And they only do it at 8 o'clock on Mondays? Fucking Christ, man. Sorry, go on.
Number 3, There Will Be Blood.
Right on.
Just a phenomenal movie. Nothing really to be said. Number 4, The Godfather. Nothing really to be said. I keep trying to get you to watch it because I genuinely think that it's like legit straight up the same vein as, Breaking Bad. It's the same story. So is There Will Be Blood. And so is another pick of mine, which is going to come up at some point, Citizen Kane. They all kind of tell that story of, the fall from grace, right? And just or even kind of Nightcrawler. They're all the same kind of thing where you just watch someone get worse and worse and worse. Just break badder and break badder and break badder. So anyways, yes, number 4 is The Godfather. Number 5, No Country for Old Men. Just a phenomenal movie. My biggest problem with this one, I don't remember if it's in the movie, but it's in the book. I will say that it's said with enough nuance that I give it a pass because it seems like it's said with it's the Tommy Lee Jones line where he says he's kind of talking about how he gets older. And he's like I just see more and more fucked up sadistic shit in the news, and it seems like everything is going to hell. That kind of a thing. And I know that it's like a natural thing that happens to everybody as they get older. They think the world's going to shit or something like that. But, it's just one of those things that,
The world's always been shit. You just have seen more and more of it, so it seems more and more frequent.
If anything, it's getting a little better. Murder rates are on the decline.
Have been for about 80 years.
Yeah. So anyways, number 6, Daisies. It's a Polish experimental movie. Just about a couple of young gals. And I don't want to describe it other than maybe a bit hedonistic. I don't know. They're just kind of running around, having a good time, fucking around. There's a lot of really interesting practical kind of effects and weird shit that they do with the film and shots and stuff. The movie's really comprised of them kind of taking guys on dates for the sake of their money. They're old dudes, these old wrinkly dudes. And anyways, number 7, Psycho. We've talked about that. Still, I've never seen a movie do that
bait and switch.
Yes, that 100%. That was one of the things I was gonna say, but also just such a stiff genre change. It's how we always make fun of the idea of it's a superhero movie, but it's also Ocean's 11. It's one of those things where Psycho does that so naturally. It's straight up a noir film that intersects with a horror film. Yeah. It's so crazy. I remember watching it for the first time and being like, what? And again, just seeing The Godfather, it's one of those things where everybody always talks about, oh, Psycho's so good. Then you watch it and you're like, yeah, dude, I've legit never fucking seen that before. It's out of control. Are you kidding me? Number 8, India Song. Number 9, Magnolia, which actually made probably, I'm assuming, IMDb's list. It was number 5 of the 90s.
Really?
Number 5 movie of the 90s.
What was number 1 in the 90s?
Don't remember offhand. Maybe Titanic or something. I don't know. Who knows? I'm pulling out of my ass. Number 10, Blair Witch Project.
Very cool.
And it's one of those things where I tried to pick a couple of things like that, and I'll shout out some of the other examples that I have, or maybe I'll even forget. But I wanted to include some stuff that I think that one gets it, on cultural impact, on actually being a solid movie, right? Just a really, really good experience. And
I don't think finish your sentence. Finish your thought.
Yeah.
Was that it?
No, I was just gonna say that it's also one of those picks where has kind of a special place in my heart because it's this is something that movies can be.
Yeah.
Also,
we haven't talked about it on here yet, but we watched Blair Witch a few days ago. But real quick, here, me and Chris always not debate, but share our thoughts about that movie here and there, and I'm like, it's whatever. I get what it is. It's a start, not the start, but the explosion and the real foundation for found footage movies, and it's such a smart, simple idea or whatever. And I'm like, but it's 2020. It doesn't really age that well.
Yeah.
Me and Chris watched it the other night. I guess I have never seen The Blair Witch. Oh my fucking god, that movie scared the dog shit out of me.
Yeah,
I was on edge for 3 days. Yeah.
But like I said, the one thing I'll say real quick is one of my favorite things about that movie, not my absolute favorite, is that like if they're just lost in the woods, that's a scary fucking movie.
Yeah, like that's
Like if they're just hallucinating all this shit, and it really like the big like kicker at the end is that they just got lost and starved to death or whatever.
yeah.
That's fucking the scariest found footage movie I've ever heard of, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, this stuff is happening, you know.
Yeah, like I knew the basic premise of the movie. It's like, yeah, they get lost and this shit happens, and I'm watching it, and they get lost, and they start arguing with each other, and it is unlike anything I've ever seen. Where it's not like, well, you're supposed to know where to go. It's like no one's really yelling at anyone yet. It's just kind of tense, and they're like starting to kind of point fingers, and it just gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit. And the entire time, I'm like, fuck, there's no witch shit going on, and I am. It's so tense right now.
Well, yeah, because there's a couple of things. One, which is that it's like the X-Files, and shouts out Camille Nanjiani's X-Files files. The thing that they talk about all the time is that it's the last great TV show pre-explosion of the internet, you know? So there's so many little things that are extra scary because you wouldn't have your smartphone in your pocket, right? Like, one of the biggest things being that almost every episode ends up being kind of about, like, the world changing as a whole, right? Like it's something that even like Modest Mouse's Lonesome Crowded West is about, like the mall fucking of America.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, Isaac Brack talks a lot about in song format, but I've also heard him talk a lot in interviews about how like he can remember growing up in the early 70s and towns being consistent, or that towns like consisting of like, oh, Mr. Smith's lock shop, Mrs. Margaret's grocery store, and then, you know, within 10-15 years suddenly it's the 80s and it's just Rite Aid, Bo Ricks, Walmart, Rite Aid, Bo Ricks, Walmart, you know. And same thing with like the X-Files. It's kind of about like globalization, right? So every episode they end up going to these small towns, right? And these people in these small towns that, like, you know, something Camille says all the time is he's like, they're like little small towns that when you're on a road trip in the 90s you might stop off in to piss and be like, what the fuck is going on here? There's something weird about this place, you know. He's like, I'm not saying that we would like stumble into town and there'd be a fucking were monster, but I am saying that, like, you know, it gives you that vibe of like when you're on a road trip and you don't actually know where you're going and you stop at a weird little place and you're like, it feels like the rest of the world has no idea this place exists.
Yeah.
You know? And that larger thing of like Mulder and Scully are always believing these poor people and these, you know, forgotten people in the backwoods of America who say like, oh my God, there's all this crazy stuff, and stand up for them in the face of big government, right? Like, excuse me, this force that's kind of moving in, punching down, erasing all of the interesting, you know, features of the face of America. Anyways, we'll talk about Blair Witch soon. Number 11, Good Time.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you see it?
Robert Pattinson, Safdie Brothers movie?
Yeah.
No, I have not seen it yet. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's one of two movies that I would say, by no means am I saying like, oh, this would necessarily beat Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, like I'm not saying like, oh, these are like better or something. That's personal and that's for you to decide. But that one, as well as another pick that's coming up, are two movies where I'm like, I think that they just have that thing where like the whole time I'm watching it, I'm just like I want to talk about it with you because there's like 3 different like little spoilers where I'm like, yo, I feel like I could easily see this coming, and I kind of can see it coming, and I probably did see it coming, but like I have never. It's almost like North by Northwest, where like we were watching it the other day, and like the whole concept throughout that whole thing while Hitchcock was doing it was like the idea of like mistaken identity, right? And they kept like writing themselves intentionally into corners of like, how the fuck are we gonna get this character out of this situation? So like it starts out and like Cary Grant or whatever gets picked up by a couple of like I guess just goons or whatever and taken to a mansion, and this guy's having this conversation with him that like Cary Grant's like, ha ha ha, this is really funny, did some of my friends put me up against it? But he's having this conversation about how like, you're a secret spy, what do you know, that kind of a thing, like, but it's all really coy, and the guy's playing it off very well, like he genuinely doesn't believe Cary Grant, and he's not giving anything away. Like, I said the word spy, but like you don't even necessarily get the impression from the conversation that he thinks he's a spy. You're really like, who does this guy fucking think Cary Grant is? And then after that, they drug him and try to get him into a car accident, and then he goes to the police about it. But then when like the police take him there the next day to like ask them what happened, the guy's like wife plays it off really well. Like he's like, "Oh, our party last night. Oh my God, you left so drunk. Did you get home safe and stuff?" And so he's gonna be catching this drunk driving charge because like, and the whole time he's like, "This is ridiculous. I'm going insane." And he's even got his mom there, which just adds another layer where his mom's just like, "Oh yes, this is really embarrassing. Honestly, you lying in front of me and in front of these police officers is more embarrassing than the DUI. Just be a man and take the DUI and stop lying. This is really genuinely a low point in your life," you know, that kind of a thing.
Wow.
And then like on top of it, like it just barrels forward to the point where like he has the name that the guy gave him, that like that he told him his name was, and he like does some research on his own, finds out that that's like a ambassador at the UN. So he goes to the UN, but it turns out that's not even the guy. The guy was giving him a fake name, and he's not even that guy. And then while he's talking to that ambassador, an assassin kills him from across the room by like throwing a knife into the back of his hand, and like when he falls, he like grabs the knife and pulls it out, and then like a reporter takes a picture of him holding the knife, and now he's wanted for murdering the ambassador and stuff. Like I said, it's just one of those movies where like the whole time you're like, what the fuck is gonna happen next, you know?
Yeah.
And Good Time is like that, and so is, I'll just jump through my list a little bit, and I'll mention it in a second, but 12, Pulp Fiction. 13, Good Will Hunting. The one thing I want to mention about that is that one of my favorite YouTube channels actually just gave it a pretty decent shout out. It was talking about it's a video called "Boys Don't Cry Except When They Do," and it's kind of an exploration of like, excuse me, you know, media portrayals of like men showing vulnerability in that way and like crying and stuff. And one of the things that he talks about in that is like how crazy it is that Good Will Hunting was as big as it was, and also breaks the traditional like male coding. Right? This is a movie about a guy who escapes toxic masculinity. You know, who hangs out with all of these like men and ends up having multiple conversations with them where they drop the facade of being like manly blue collar workers, and you know, his friends care for him and want better for him and stuff, and he goes to therapy and stuff like that, and it's actually like a genuinely, you know, male vulnerable movie, you know. And I think that's very important. And it's probably one of the only movies on here besides like Moonlight that isn't Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Anyways, 14, Forrest Gump. 15, The Wizard of Oz. 16, this is the movie I was talking about, High Noon. It's from like 1954. It's got Gary Cooper in it, but somehow it breaks the tradition of westerns having to be these fucking slow, meandering kind of like, you know, like, oh, over the desert as like a tumbleweed moves, and we're gonna it's gonna take us about 3 days to get to the next town. Like, you know, that thing where it's just like paced very like, you know, and, like even during like a shootout, like you get it pans over the people in the crowd, and then you see a shot of his hand like by the gun. Like, it's not like that at all. It's 100% a movie where for some reason they just decided, what if 1 minute in the movie is 1 minute in the story? And Gary Cooper literally has an hour and a half in the film, basically, like, for one reason or other, unexpectedly, I guess, one of his, like, big bads that he put away, because he's the sheriff, like his Joker almost, for some reason, just got released from prison, and he's on his way at, like, 11:10 a.m. The train's coming in, and he's coming to, like, get his revenge kind of a thing. He's going to shoot up the whole town or kill everybody kind of a thing. And Gary Cooper in the beginning of the movie is, like, leaving, and he's just married, and he's like supposed to retire from being a sheriff because that's what his wife wants him to do. But he hears that news, and he spends the rest of the movie trying to get together some people to like be in the shootout with them. And I'm going to spoil a bit of it. Everybody turns him down, and it just keeps getting more and more tense as, again, I'm going to spoil a little bit, it comes to showdown time, and it's just him. Nobody wants to stand by his side kind of a thing. And it's so tense, and it's very fast-paced. Like, it's almost paced like a modern film. Like, it almost feels like an homage to what Westerns were, but, like, made like a modern movie. It's insane for 1954 or whatever it was. Out of control. L.A. Confidential, that's 17. 18, The Shining. 19, Airplane.
Love it.
Yeah.
Have I told you my airplane story?
Watching it with your dad, right?
Yeah.
In the morning?
Do you think I've told it on the pod before?
Probably not.
When I was, third grade. How old is that?
You're asking the wrong guy. 8?
8 or 9, yeah. Let's
Okay.
just say 8. I'm 8 going on 9. Day before my birthday party, parents rented out the local school pool.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And the night before, family went out to eat. Me and my sister got crazy food poisoning. Like, still to this day, the most insane food poisoning I've seen on a person. Just a little 8-year-old me. I threw up for like a day and a half straight. Just everything I ate. Just couldn't sleep because every hour I was getting up, throwing up whatever I had in me, even when it was nothing. So eventually my parents had to go to that school, to that pool, and host a birthday party for a bunch of other people's kids, and I had to stay home. It was very sad. But that night, while I was up throwing up, I watched a bunch of movies with my dad, and I think the first one we watched was Airplane, and I had a wonderful time. So that's just the memory of Airplane that I have.
All right, so yeah, we're about 19 in. How you feeling so far?
Lethargic.
Anything? Anything egregious?
Egregious? No. No. I mean, the egregious. No.
Okay. Kind of got a little bit of a smirk.
Because you said you're not ranking them,
Yeah.
and then a couple of them that you put on there. Well, only one that comes to mind is one that I know you watched for school, and I was like, really? Best of all time, Chris? Top 100 India song? Really?
Yeah, mainly because, well, High Noon's also a movie I saw for school. So is Daisies. So is Taste the Cherry. Different classes, but
Okay.
yeah, with India song, that one specifically is like you remember probably very vividly the first time that I saw it. I was so upset.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things like the only one we've gotten to at this point is I think the Blair Witch Project, but there's a couple more that like I said I want to shout out, but this also falls into that Blair Witch Project category where like the movie holds such a special place in my heart because over the next couple days as I thought about it, I was like, oh, that's because I went into this movie with a set of like deeply, deeply rooted expectations for what film is, and this movie just proved me wrong.
Yeah.
On every front imaginable.
That's respectable.
And it's so special. There's nothing else like India song.
All right.
And it's one of those movies like Magnolia or I don't know what the other example you gave me was, Synecdoche New York. You just quoted Red Letter Media as being like movies that like, quote, you can't just watch Magnolia. You got to kind of blame out there on it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like India song, it's a labor. You know what I mean? Like if it'd be like your experience with Blair Witch Project. I know you said you feel like you haven't seen it. Maybe you have seen it one time before, but it took like that second viewing kind of thing. Like the first time, if I showed it to you, you would just be pissed, and you'd probably never watch it again, and you'd never give it that second chance.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that like it needs a second chance kind of a thing. Because like the first one is all about just like deflating whatever you thought you were gonna be doing, and then the second time you're like, okay, well now I'm gonna watch it for what it is and stop focusing on what it isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I very much so. I always feel well, I always feel bad about myself, but I feel bad about myself when I think about art, especially film, and I guess TV in this sense.
Uh-huh.
I feel not pretentious, but just, how was the word I'm looking for? Like, kind of like a know-it-all that doesn't really know anything.
Okay.
It's Twin Peaks for me.
Yeah.
Like I'll never like that's why Twin Peaks is one of my favorite things. Like I'll never get over being how old were we? 21, 22? Yeah. And being like, I've tried to watch Twin Peaks like 9 times and I just don't get it. And then that like 10th time watching it being like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Ah shit. I get it.
Yeah.
And it just opened up a weird different world of just again, this sounds so pretentious and just like base level arty, but just like, oh yeah, no, it opened my eyes to like what other art and shit could be, where it's just like, if you don't like it once, watch it all the way through, understand what it is, and then watch it again and being like, okay, why am I seeing this?
Yeah.
What am I personally getting out of this? What is this making me think of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we never really get to this point of the conversation because you get so upset every time we talk about it. But it's one of the it's one of the biggest reasons why like I'm so open to watching the third season over and over and over again. Even though we started the other day, but we never really finished. Is mainly just
The other
because
day
like
was 6 months ago, I think.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, because like I said, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, I'm not like mad about it. I always try to explain that like it's just not for me. Like, it's not grabbing me. There's nothing that like, but like, obviously, like I'm obviously open to like watching it again. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I don't think it needs to be like thrown away or that it's worthless. I just, yeah, I still haven't had that viewing where I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of scratching this itch for me.
Can't wait for that day, though. I'm going to be so happy.
Because every time I put it on, I'm just like, all right, this is really, really dragging. Again, it reminds me of like the TV landscape post Breaking Bad, but like maybe like a couple of notches too slow. It's all kind of dark, you know, kind of looks a lot like TV in the post Breaking Bad landscape. And again, it is a little bit like India Song also, right, where like you've slapped the name Twin Peaks on it, so there are a lot of things that I come to expect. Not necessarily like the aesthetic or something like that, but more so like, yeah, I guess maybe like the soap opera aspect of it. Like I expect it to be emotional, to be like a thing where there are, you know, relationships and dynamics and like, you know, emoting on display and like interesting things, like kind of interesting like emotional predicaments to find yourself in. And you get that a couple of times, right? Like the Ed like hanging out at his gas station.
Yeah.
Or that moment where like you think that Shelley's coming in to like have lunch with, presumably still with Bobby, but really she's just coming in there to like, I don't know, whatever, they gotta have a conversation with their daughter or something like that, and you find out that she's got like her new boyfriend's like hanging outside waiting for her and stuff, and like it's this thing where like they set up that expectation and immediately shatter it, which is great. I love that. But yeah, there's so much of it, like the beginning, like I don't care about that box that guy has to like sit and watch. It's not that interesting to me necessarily.
Well, they immediately
I like the Matthew
dropped
Lillard
that.
thing.
Matthew Lillard's great. They unfortunately immediately dropped that, too.
Yeah, they tried it. But anyways, off topic a little bit, but yeah. So here we go. 20, Annie Hall. I think that, along with another one of my picks later on, are one of like the few like comedy movies that have actually been like critically acclaimed in the sense of like being given meaningless awards, like the Academy Awards and whatnot. 21, Chinatown. A little bit like that North by Northwest thing. I have to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole thing with like the water company in California and like something to do with the water that I actually don't understand. But it's a great noir film. Jack Nicholson. One of the things I love is it's just got such a fucking great beginning. He is a private eye.
Mm-hmm.
A woman comes to Jack Nicholson and is basically like, hey, I'm the mayor's wife. And she's like, hey, he's doing this shady shit, keep an eye on it, kind of a thing. Whatever, right? He goes off, he does it. I think he gets his like nose broke. And when he shows back up, it like makes the news or whatever. And when he shows up to his job, his boss or whatever is kind of like, hey, what the fuck? And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, what the fuck? And Jack Nicholson is like, the mayor's wife told me that this stuff was going on, and like I went to go check it out. And he's like, no, she's not. She's in this room, and it's a totally other woman, a different woman.
You're getting me right now.
Yeah.
I want to watch this movie.
Let's watch Chinatown tonight.
Maybe.
Okay, anyways. All right, so let's start blazing. Apparently, I've spent 45 minutes talking about 21 movies.
41.
Anyways, Citizen Kane, again. I think that, as well as The Godfather, it would be very much up your alley. The producers, Mel Brooks' first movie and only non-parody movie that he's ever made. Leon the Professional, 24.
Ooh, good one.
Punch Drunk Love, 25. 26, Synecdoche, New York. 27, Groundhog Day. Just a fantastic concept. And honestly, like I went into it not expecting like the emotional wallop that it packs, too. It's one of those movies that, again, like I feel like is a little egregious to put on here just because I don't, like I said, one of the things I don't like is, like I said, how many movies are about like, oh, I'm angry, so pow pow. But also, like, another thing I don't like is when the movie boils down to like all of that just to get a girl. That's it solves my problems. And Groundhog Day is really just kind of about him getting that girl to like him, and then that teaches him, like, he learns a lesson, but the lesson is too adjacent to the woman that, like, it ends up also sending the message that, like, a man can be fixed by just finding the right woman, and so that,
Yeah.
a little bit of a bummer. Anyways, 28, The Iron Giant.
Ooh.
29, the original Frankenstein. 30, Young Frankenstein.
I'm sorry. You said you got some of these from other lists.
Yes.
Was the Iron Giant on a top 100 list?
That might be the only movie on here. Swear to God, Bible truth, the only movie that I didn't see anywhere. I don't think.
Okay, cool. Makes me happy for some reason.
But I could. If I see anything else, I swear to God, I'll point it out. Young Frankenstein, 30, 31, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 32, Carnival of Souls, 33, Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. That one is fantastic.
I love a good long title.
Yeah.
Haven't seen the movie. Like,
You
it
should
just
check
goes
it out.
out.
It's the kid.
Yeah.
Kubrick,
Yeah.
Kubrick kid. And yeah, it's fantastic. He's got a fucking knack for comedy. That was one that I brought up to my grandfather, and he was like, yeah, that's a weird one, but it's funny as hell.
Have you seen Kubrick as a kid, actually?
Mm-mm.
Looks 40 years old. I don't think Kubrick's ever
That's
been
very
a kid.
funny.
Yeah.
It's even funnier to call him the kid then. 34, Rocky. 35, Parasite. 36, Get Out. 37, Wall-E.
Ooh.
38, Amelie. 39, Eternal Sunshine.
Nice.
40, Back to the Future.
Nice.
41, Blade
Back
Runner.
to the Future too. Sorry.
Yeah, Blade Runner. It does have that rape scene, but it reminds me a little bit of, again, with all of the things that end up on the list. I saw a tweet from Jerry Saltz. Don't know him that well. I know he's an art critic, and that he's got, for some reason, a bit of a brand about him. People like him on the internet.
Yeah.
Anyways, and he tweeted out that a good message does not mean that you've made good art.
Yeah.
And I think conversely, a bad message does not mean that it's not good art.
Yeah.
You know?
I think
And I'm not saying Blade Runner has a bad message overall. That's not what I mean.
I like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Something's always kind of irked me about it, or something. Like I said, I really like it, and like we were talking about earlier, and you mentioned briefly, I've been watching a lot of Red Letter Media, and they kind of put it in a really simple but really good way.
Yeah.
That I hadn't really thought about it.
What's that?
Blade Runner, fucking boring. It is still a really,
fair.
really good
Yeah.
movie.
That's very fair.
But you're never surprised.
No.
You're never like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it
You
just
know
kinda
it's
happens
going to
in front
happen
of you.
immediately, and it just
Yeah.
kind of happens. No one's that interesting, but it's just, it's like a movie like, I don't know, like Drive or Nightcrawler, for instance.
Yeah.
It just has a fucking smell to it, you know?
Yeah, it
It's
also
like,
reminds me a little bit of, like, I've read a Philip K. Dick novel, A Scanner Darkly.
Yeah.
And I love it. But also, overall, it is kind of boring. It kind of has this, like, Sunday morning feel. Like, nothing's that crazy necessarily, but there's just, like, little things that are, like, said or little things that happen that for some reason I can't escape. And I'd even consider it one of my favorite books, even though, by and large, it's kind of boring. Same thing with Blade Runner. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it still has, like, a little bit of the Philip K. Dick stank on it. Anyways, 42, Nightcrawler.
nice.
43, Drive. And that's one of the interesting things
Did
about
I
the
just
list.
did I just do that?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
what I'm saying
nice.
is one of the interesting thing about the list is there are multiple times where, like, you can actually chunk it. You can see where my brain connected the dots.
That's very cool.
You know what I mean? And the next three, also in my opinion, same thing. 44, Breathless. It's a French New Wave film. Guy kills a cop in the beginning of the movie, spends the rest of the movie, spends 2 days knowing that the cops are after him and that he's got to get the fuck out of France. But the two things that he's worried about is, one, getting some money he's owed from his friend, but his friend keeps, kind of blowing him off. And two, trying to convince this American woman to run away with him. And I think the movie just ends with him getting caught by the cops and killed or whatever. But it's just such a cool, it's got that 90s, I was saying about Regular Show kind of thing where, it's just people hanging out and having, super normal but for some reason enthralling conversations.
Yeah.
And, there's interesting, camera movements. And just the way that they talk and the way the camera moves makes it feel like it has the same kind of, urgency and energy to it that, High Noon has or, Good Time has. But then at the same time, it's also got this chilled, laid-back atmosphere of, Slacker or Clerks. Anyways, and then In Bruges, again, European, about crime, kind of, just people hanging out, having conversations, right? And then 46, Train Spotting, and I feel like those three are all kind of chunked together the same way that, Blade Runner, Nightcrawler, Drive are. 47, The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
Yeah, still.
Not Star Wars, but The Sixth Sense. Okay.
48, The Royal Tenenbaums. Still think it's the best movie ever made. I know people really
Really?
like The Grand Budapest Hotel, and people really like Moonrise Kingdom. But I think it's one of those things, kind of like
I'm sorry, best movie he ever made or just in general?
he ever made.
Okay, you
Yeah,
said
he
best
ever made.
movie ever made, and I was like, really,
Oh, I meant to
Chris?
say he made. It's kind of one of those things like Pulp Fiction, where like, yes, Tarantino has made fantastic movies. I love Inglourious Basterds. I love Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I feel like that one's just so pure, exactly what he has to offer.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I feel like Royal Tenenbaums is the same thing. And I feel like almost immediately after making that movie, although he still snuck a couple of really good ones that I really like in it, it just became a little too much him doing his kind of movie.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, I get that.
Like up until that point, I've seen like Bottle Rocket, I've seen Rushmore, and there's that thing where he's still trying to find what his movie is, and then from that point on, he's kind of making his movie, which is fine. But I feel like almost the same thing happens with Tarantino, where like Reservoir Dogs is not quite Pulp Fiction, but then everything after is kind of Tarantino leaning into his strengths, which is fine, and he made some really great movies doing it. But do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyways, barreling forward, Blue Velvet, 49. 50, My Dinner with Andre.
Oh,
Another movie we've seen.
I feel like it's a Blair Witch situation.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen
Yeah.
Dinner with Andre, but probably not.
Like
I
Blade
probably
Runner,
need to
it's
rewatch it.
boring, but somehow they made an hour-and-a-half movie where two guys have a conversation in a restaurant.
Yeah, love it.
Nothing else happens. And to me, it's so indicative of, like, I guess, like, things to come. It's kind of ahead of its time, right? Because, I don't know, it makes sense that it could work, right? Because radio, podcasting, and stuff like that. But I've never seen another movie do it,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't know. It's really cool.
Have you ever seen Locke with Tom Hardy? I haven't either, but I've been meaning to for like probably 6 years at this point. It is him. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's Tom Hardy in a car driving down a highway, making phone calls to like 4 different people.
That's awesome.
And you never see anything besides him on the phone. And I think
Phone Booth. That's another movie I want to see.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he spends the whole movie in the phone booth.
yeah. I'd like to see all 3 of these movies.
And there were a lot of movies that, like, as I was talking to my granddad about it because he was interested, we were kind of talking about it, and he was bringing up some other stuff and whatnot. Yada yada yada. Great conversation. I want to watch Last House on the Left really bad.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I don't know, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's probably like it's one of those. It's a Wes Craven, 1972, so it's way before Nightmare on Elm Street.
Or
Way
you could
before
watch the
Scream.
new one with Aaron Paul
I don't know about that.
before
but-
Breaking Bad.
I don't know about that, but it's one of those things where, like, I feel like that's got to have some of that, like, James Gunny, Sam Raimi early movie energy that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's one of those things where, like, I've seen Scream, I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but I haven't seen that one, and that one's probably like the most pure, like, horror slasher kind of thing he made. So, like, I have this context of, like, Nightmare on Elm Street where he's kind of getting tired of horror tropes and, like, slasher movie tropes, right? And he's starting to try to, like, flip it on its head and parody it. And then it gets to the point of, like, Scream where he legitimately does parody and, like, meta commentary on it. So I feel like to complete, like, in my mind, the trilogy of him, like, progressing through that, I'd have to see things like Last House on the Left or, like, The Hills Have Eyes, right? Because those are, like, just straight-up horrors that he made. But even by the time you're at Nightmare on Elm Street, he's kind of almost done with the genre in a sense, right? He's trying to, like, kind of breathe new life into it or whatever. Anyways, 51, Halloween.
Nice.
52, Eraserhead. If you're keeping track, I think at this point David Lynch may be the only person. Oh, David Lynch and Stanley Kubrick are the 2 people. Oh, and Mel Brooks. Those are the 3 people who have had 2 on the list so far.
Respectable.
So, anyways, let's see what's next. 53, The Wicker Man. Really think you should check it out.
I plan
really
on
do.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the bees.
I give that one a point for. I'll
The Bees?
mention another film that I think does this. It's a good movie, a little boring in the beginning, but there's just a point like halfway through the movie, kind of like that whole like, what do you mean the mayor's wife is in here thing that happens where like it just flips your whole shit, you know?
Is it the bees?
No, the bees don't happen in the original.
I know.
But there's just this thing where, like, in the beginning, I feel a certain way about the character. I fucking hate it. I'm like, God, this movie kind of sucks. Like, is this going to be the whole thing? Because if so, like, I don't really agree with this. Like, they've made me not like this character. And then a thing happens, and you're like, oh no, oh, I feel totally different now. 54, Exorcist. 55, Suspiria. 56, Rosemary's Baby. Suspiria, you should definitely see. It reminds me of like a modern movie that I'd like to see, Neon Demon. It's one of those movies where it's like very much so like, I'm not saying the substance is bad, but it's definitely 100%. It has a legacy for its style. Like the way that it looks is what has carried it mainly.
Neon Demon's the Nicholas Winding Refn movie.
Yeah, I haven't. To see Only God Forgives.
Yeah, I saw Only God Forgives. Didn't love it.
Yeah,
actually, I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been nervous about seeing Neon Demon. Again, I was thinking about it while you're talking on your list. I think, even though I hate it, Only God Forgives might show up on my list because it's the best looking movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, that's something I was gonna say. Like, I was just hanging out on the r/movies subreddit even to try to I was doing so much research for this list. Seriously. And again, like that makes it sound like this is like objective or it has authority. At the end of the day, these are my picks. Like I had to scramble because I was like, "Fuck, have I seen any more movies?" You know, but,
yeah.
But one of the discussions I saw on the r/movies subreddit recently was like, what are some underrated films that you think that like have come out recently in the last 10 years, kind of a thing, that as time progresses, like, you know, the cultural attitude towards them might shift. And that I saw a couple people making the case that like Drive set up a certain expectation for Nicholas Winding Refn that made everybody hate his next couple movies. But as soon as like that expectation is shattered and there's more time between them, I think people will appreciate them because I think they were expecting more substance after something like Drive, but they're really all style, and you kind of got to appreciate them for just being like all style or whatever. But because there was that expectation set with Drive, people ended up hating them. But I saw a lot of people making the case that, like I said, those will be looked at differently given in a couple more years.
Yeah, I'd like to see it again because I haven't seen it since I was probably 16.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember watching it and being like, okay, I get what's happening here. I get what this movie's doing, but it's not doing it well. It very much so felt like, oof, I'm pretty deep, man. But at the same time, we had that whole little conversation about Twin Peaks and me being able to appreciate things a little differently after I've seen them once. So yeah, maybe we should do that. We should watch that movie together soon.
Anyways, 57, Night of the Living Dead. Just a quick side note. Got to give a lot of love to horror movies made with no budget that just really show off what a director can do.
Yeah.
But to be fair, George Romero, from my understanding, only went on to make like maybe 3 more good movies.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of the time in the 2000s and 2010s making just very, 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 very bad sequels to the Of the Dead series.
And being in Call of Duty.
Yeah. Anyways,
I'm sorry. That just crash landed into my brain. I completely forgot about that. Do you remember that? What? There's a Call of Duty Zombies DLC where you play as a bunch of actors, like I think like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Danny Trejo and 2 other people.
That rings a bell.
The plot of the DLC for the Zombies thing is you're filming a zombie movie with director George Romero, and then actual zombies show up, and the big bad boss zombie at the end is fucking George Romero.
That's interesting. Yeah. Also,
I think Avenged Sevenfold is in that game as Avenged Sevenfold.
It's an interesting thing that like is kind of a staple of movies staple of horror movies specifically. They've always done that thing where like they're filming a movie and then there's a Frankenstein movie like that. I want to say I can't remember the name of it, but they do have Boris Karloff playing not the monster but like Dr. Frankenstein, and it's a similar thing where like they're making a Frankenstein movie and they're like near him, maybe he's consulting or something like that, and he's actually making a monster while they're making the movie. There's another one, I think it's called Target. I could be wrong, but it's considered to be Boris Karloff's swan song because it's about him and him being a horror movie star and him being old and stuff like that. And it ends with like this very, like, it's considered to be one of the best movies ever made. I've seen it on some of the lists. Where at the end, there's a situation where like there's like a crazed fan who ends up like setting up like a sniper rifle and he's killing people at the drive-in that's like screening Boris Karloff's last movie, and there's this like confrontation between Boris Karloff and him where like kind of gives him the business in a sense. I don't know. It's a crazy movie that I definitely want to see. And then also even before Scream, between Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, there was like Nightmare on Elm Street like Part 6, Freddy's Dead or something like that, where it starts off with Wes Craven making a Nightmare on Elm Street movie with Robert Englund or whatever playing Freddy.
Yeah.
And during the process of making the movie, the classic like Freddy thing happens where like they're talking about him and making him known enough that he actually gets power or whatever and like is able to, and it's supposed to be like a proto Scream where like he's basically like parodying the genre, but it's not fully actualized, right? Like that concept of being meta, that concept of parody hasn't entirely solidified. Anyways, so yeah, number 58 is another movie from 50s, 60s, black and white, kind of like Carnival of Souls, that has like just this Lynchian quality. Like I feel I would love to watch it with you as soon as possible.
Okay.
It's called Daughter of Horror, sometimes called Dementia, and I can't remember which one, but one of them is a recut where they put it out like kind of specifically as a B horror movie, where they add in like this like cheesy narration where like over the top of this otherwise silent film, this guy's just going like, "It's here. Death. It's at your door. Your oldest friend." Like just saying weird, innocuous, like incoherent kind of like creepy Halloween shit, you know? But there's also a silent version that very much so plays almost like a fucking Lynch movie or something like that. And it's great. It's also very dreamy and surreal, like very hard to describe. Fantastic movie. What are you looking at?
George Romero in Call of Duty.
59, Evil Dead.
Very cool.
60, Adaptation.
Very cool.
61, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Very cool.
62 might upset you a little bit. Juno.
Oh, nice.
I definitely think Juno is a great movie. I've never seen that before. Besides their dialogue, which I know gets a lot of flack, it's a really like endearing and kind of heart-wrenching, heartwarming story about a young girl kind of getting pregnant and making a decision to give it up or keep it or whatever, and you know, dealing with it with her parents, dealing with it with her significant other, you know. I think there's a lot of stuff there, and I feel like there's a degree to which it gets forgotten because of like the meme of Juno.
At work today, actually, someone was talking about Inception.
Yeah.
And then someone made a bad joke about like, "Oh yeah, that one dude in that movie is very hot." And we're like, "What?" I was like, "Tom Hardy?" He was like, "No, Elliot Page." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's funny." He's like, "He's hottest in Juno for my money." And I'm like, "He's hottest when he's a pregnant teenager?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know why I said that." I'm like, "You should be ashamed of yourself, man."
You just got canceled. Go home.
Yeah.
All right, so 63.
Also, the list of celebrities in that Call of Duty thing, I was right. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Danny Trejo, Michael Rooker, and Robert Englund. Sorry.
63, Slacker.
Okay, very cool.
Again, like I said, another example of like movies can also be this. This next one's kind of like a lesser. It's almost like, I don't know. This is a very, very loose description, but it's one of those things like how you're describing like the Blair Witch Project, not necessarily starting the found footage, but kind of being the one that kind of capitalized on it and made the biggest cultural impact. So 64 is Clerks.
Yeah.
They kind of go hand in hand. Like I see how they're paired together, but Slacker is definitely like the more pure version of, like just weird, nothing to do with each other. Every 10 minutes, the camera just like follows another person that passed on the street of Austin, and for the next 10 minutes, you're just gonna hear them talk about whatever they got going on in their life, and it's very weird. 65, Dog Day Afternoon, Al Pacino. I don't know if you've ever seen it or heard about it too much.
I've heard about it, but I've
But
never
yeah, long
seen
story
it.
short, it's based on a true story. He robs the bank for his partner. His partner is, I believe, like trans and needs the money for like a transition procedure. And yeah, it's this weird story of like how he ended up becoming like a Robin Hood figure kind of by like speaking with the press outside of the bank as he's like holding these hostages and like bringing up recent like U.S. government like atrocities and stuff like that to like turn the general American public against the cops and like on his side and stuff. It's very interesting. 66, Goodfellas.
Okay.
Goodfellas. Would love to have put things like Raging Bull or Taxi Driver or maybe some of his other, maybe more pure movies on there or whatever, but I've not seen them, so eat my butt. Yeah, it's such a fucking good movie.
Yeah, I got
It reminds me a lot of Pulp Fiction, but like if Pulp Fiction had a baby with like The Godfather, I guess, because it's also like a little less. I hate to use this term again, but like at this point, I feel like there's a degree to which like Pulp Fiction has some like cringe to it or something.
Yeah.
But like I don't think Goodfellas has the same problem.
I think it might. Excuse me.
At least for me. At least for me, and my perception of it.
Sorry, just did the world's longest yawn. Goodfellas, I need to see again.
Yeah. Well, the circumstance.
Yes, I don't know. If
David Lynch would probably punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, I watched Goodfellas. The only time I've ever seen Goodfellas was at a party. Somebody was playing it off of YouTube on a TV. So I'm watching it 4:3 YouTube quality, a party behind me. And it is in, they're playing it on YouTube in a playlist in, I think, 11-minute chunks.
Increments, yeah.
And every increment, the first 2 minutes of it are the last 2 minutes of the last one. And that's how I watched all of Goodfellas, and I was enthralled the entire time.
Yeah.
It was great.
67 Swiss Army Man.
Really?
Did you see it?
Yeah. I really like Swiss Army
I
Man.
really like that movie.
Yeah, Swiss Army Man's great. My favorite thing about Swiss Army Man,
Yeah.
spoilers, is it's an A24 film, right?
I think so.
It ends, and yeah, they get to the girl's house, and everyone's like, bro, you've just been carrying around a dead body. And he's like, no, he's alive, and this and that. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
No, it's an A24 movie. They got me. Like, yeah, of course this is how this movie was gonna. They're gonna be like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
oh right, this guy is insane.
Yeah.
And then he fucking farts off into the sunset at the end. I'm like, oh, nailed it, great, beautiful ending.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's in my opinion a movie that makes me feel the same way that like even something like Back to the Future does, just because it's so imaginative. Like there's so many little things where like it just takes a leap and doesn't care whether or not the audience is gonna go, oh really?
Yeah.
He's got fart powers or whatever.
Oh,
But
he's got a boner compass.
yeah, and then it also makes me feel like Groundhog Day or something like that. Like that's such an imaginative and inventive way to tell the story of like someone who's cynical and hardened to the world falling in love with life again.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a beautiful movie. That's a very beautiful movie to me. 68 is The Souvenir. Came out recently. I don't think it was A24. It might have been that, at least A24 adjacent, same vein. But it reminds me of like My Dinner with Andre. It's very boring, and it kind of reminds me of like Taste of Cherry, where it's like one-to-one realism. And long story short, it's just about this like young naive girl who's like in art school and is in love with this like smooth-talking, suave guy who says he's like an ambassador at like the UN or whatever it is, right? Or like some embassy nearby. And he seems so sophisticated and like nice, and like you like fall into her naivete. Like it isn't until like some of the characters say things like, hey, should we be like worried about him? And she's like, what? And he's like, they're like, yo, he's like a heroin addict. And like you're like, oh shit, like that makes so much sense. But like I said, it's like this boring, like like it's a movie where I was checking my watch the whole time.
Yeah.
It really is a tough watch, but it's one of those things where like it seldom, because there are a couple of movies on this list, like I said, like Taste of Cherry or like My Dinner with Andre. Seldom have I ever been filled so much with that feeling of like, did someone just turn on a camera and capture someone's life? Like, because it really feels so just real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a movie like Back to the Future or something. It's someone's fucking life, you know? So yeah, that one gets a huge shout out. 69, Francis Ha.
Okay.
70, The Babadook.
The Babadook. Yeah.
The Babadook.
Babadook, no Star Wars? All right.
I mean, yeah, The Babadook. It's, you know, maybe one of the weaker entries. But yeah, it's just a neat little thing where, I mean, it does a similar thing to like The Wicker Man and all that, where like I just hate the kid, and I hate him, and I hate him. And I'm expecting it this whole time that, like, okay, the Babadook exists, and the Babadook's going to haunt the house, and yada, yada, yada. And then at a certain point, they're like, oh, no, this is actually a metaphor for, like, the resentment the mom has for this kid because she feels like it's his fault that, like, the love of her life is dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck. That's so dark and heavy and fucked up, and you stuck it. You stuck the landing.
Does it the Babadook end with, I feel like this probably works really well with that metaphor. Doesn't the end of that movie, they're just like, well, Babadook lives in the basement now. Isn't that how that movie ends?
I don't remember offhand, but that could be.
Okay.
That could be. 71, It's Such a Beautiful Day.
Okay.
Again, it's got some big cringe factor to it because I don't like Don Hertzfeld's sense of humor most of the time. I don't know if you've ever seen his like little animated shorts.
Oh, I
where,
have.
like, smashes people and like the joke is like it's kind of James Gunny where it's like the joke is how violent it is or like the joke is how gruesome and gory it is.
The Learning Channel,
Yeah.
I think to this day.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in probably a few years.
Yeah.
Still probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I disagree with you. I think his humor...
That's fine. Like I said, his humor's just not for me. I still like that movie a lot. I still respect Don Hertzfeld. I love that that he's just this guy who like literally does everything for these movies in his apartment, and then every couple of years, from my understanding or my perception at least, just goes, "Hey, I made another one."
Yeah.
I did not see. That's another movie that I did not see. I don't. No, yeah, I did. I think like maybe a top 100 indie, top 100 of the 2000s or whatever, 2010s. But more frequently, I actually saw his movie, The World of Tomorrow. That one showed up more frequently, which is another interesting one where the only character that's a weird way to say that. One of the characters is like his 4-year-old niece, and he just spent like just days and days and days recording her audio of them like playing games together and like whatever, all that kind of stuff, you know, and then made a movie around sound clips of that.
Love that shit. I love when the voice of a child or something is just someone following a child around the microphone. I think that's what all of what's her name? The little girl in Monsters Inc.
Yeah, Boo.
Yeah, they just followed
That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, they just followed that girl around with a microphone. Have you ever seen Bravest Warriors?
I've not. Yeah, but I'm familiar. That's Adventure Time creator.
Yeah.
Cody Pendleton.
Yeah, Pendleton
Online.
Ward. There's a character named
Cody
Catbug.
Pendleton is actually a kid I knew in like the 4th grade.
Yeah, it's Pendleton Ward.
Yeah.
There's a character named Catbug.
Uh-huh.
And that's the standout thing from the show. I remember nothing about Bravest Warriors except for Catbug.
Uh-huh.
And Catbug is like a 3-year-old boy who they get in. They're like, "Hey, can you just say this stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah." Like, a lot of it's garbled and you can't really tell what they're saying, but it's still very funny. Also, have you ever seen Axe Cop?
I have not.
Axe
But
Cop.
I'm familiar. It's like written by like an 11-year-old or something, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think by the time the show came out, he's probably like 11. But yeah, like the early like web comics were written by this guy's like 5-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Have you seen it? It's Such a Beautiful Day?
Oh yeah.
On the Memo list?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where like that kind of like weird alt comedy thing is then paired with this like crazy emotional story about a guy who like mental illness and like whatever kind of degenerative disease he has is like a part of his lineage and his family, and he's like slowly descending into it and not understanding it, but also like kind of like almost kind of coming to peace with the fact that life is going and like loving life and in a sense like breaking his like humdrum like just day-to-day routine that he fell into. I don't know, it's really, really a curious thing, right? And again, I think it almost falls into that category of being something like The Blair Witch or like My Dinner with Andre, where again, it's like, yeah, that counts too. I've never seen a really movie like that. I have seen things like it, but not really, kind of.
I don't know what this says about me, but that reminds me of a movie I just watched. No spoilers, but there's a character in it who's an old man who has early onset Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking, and he's like, "Yeah, this is." Someone's like, "Jake's childhood bedroom." He's like, "Yes, sorry, I have." I have, and they're like, Alzheimer's. She's like, "Yes, and I'm forgetting things, and I just can't wait till I'm old enough that I can't remember that I can't remember." And I'm that, and what you were saying about It's a Beautiful Life. I'm like, oh, can't wait. Can't wait till my brain is dying and I don't care that my brain is dying.
72, I have to give it to The Truman Show. I think that's a fantastic concept, the idea that his whole life's a TV show or whatever, and he has no idea, and then he finds out later and whatnot. It's great.
Truman Show's a movie I would really like to rewatch.
Yeah.
Because I've seen Truman Show probably 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw it when I was like 14.
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go over to this girl's house, and we would watch The Truman Show, and I'd catch the last 15 minutes of it usually.
Yeah.
That and Up. I think those were the only two movies my friend owned. But yeah, I remember seeing Up with my family. They're like, Nick, you ever seen Up? I'm like, yeah, Up's
You've seen
whatever.
a boner the whole time because your brain had wired it.
And I'm just rock hard watching Up with my dad. No. Up starts, and it's that montage at the beginning
Yeah.
that's the saddest thing in the world.
Ever,
And I'm just
yeah.
bawling my eyes out. They're like, Nick, I thought you've seen this before. I'm like, yeah, it's just getting me real good.
73, Alien.
Okay.
74, 2001: A Space Odyssey. 75, North by Northwest. Here's
Nice.
Alfred Hitchcock's number 2. I just explained it earlier. I tried my best not to talk about movies that appeared later in the list, but that was just...
Kubrick's third.
Oh, it's his third. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, his third. Yeah, North by Northwest. Like I said, it's not devoid of gross stuff. Cary Grant is legit like 50, 60 or something like that, and the whole time he's like obsessed with this 26-year-old girl that he met on a train, and like the crux of the last half of the movie is that he wants to save her even though he's a stranger, that
Yeah.
they kissed once on like a train, and he apparently is in quote-unquote love with her, and that's weird. But all that other stuff is super, 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 super enthralling, and great. 76, Silence of the Lambs.
Very nice.
Really should check that out. There's
Yeah.
only one thing. There's one moment where I feel like they jump the shark, kind of, which is that, like, I'm gonna spoil it a little bit, but it's not a big deal. It's more like it's a scene that just like sets up imagery, kind of. So it doesn't really have anything to do with the plot. But they're like transporting Hannibal Lecter, and he like gets his hand on some kind of like weapon-ish, and he's like alone with like, I don't know, 2 or 3 guards or something like that, and he's basically able to like kill them, eat their faces, and then like string one of them up on like a cage that he was going to be put in, and like cut muscles and skin out so that it kind of looks like he's like almost like an angel or something like that, or something like that. And it's just one of those moments where like I was just immediately like, oh, that's right, I'm watching a movie, right? Like it's just kind of like,
Okay, yeah.
like it's so real and you're so enthralled in it, like it almost feels like you're watching something like The Jinx or something like that, and then out of nowhere, like something very fantastical and like imaginative and over the top kind of happens. It's so over the top that like that's my one complaint about that movie.
It's the Meat Angel.
Yeah, the Meat Angel, yeah. 77, Nosferatu.
Nice.
78, Walk Hard.
Nice.
That's
Love it.
straight up. That's one of the funniest movies ever. Alicia doesn't care for it at all.
I don't care
Literally,
for Alicia. So
She doesn't even like it. She's like, no, I just didn't think it was funny.
don't even like her. This is a great time to bring this up.
Yeah, she doesn't think it's funny at all.
That's
I even did that embarrassing thing where I was like, what about that scene? And then I started like reciting scenes, and she was like, yeah, no, not funny to me.
fucking. Oh my.
But I think it's as funny as like Airplane or Young
Yeah,
Frankenstein.
it is
And it's
so-
so funny that a lot of my favorite comedies that end up on this list, parodies.
Yeah, that's a
Spoofs.
great point. Yeah.
Airplane, Young Frankenstein, Walk Hard.
Because I think they're a great. Like, if something's not a spoof,
Yeah.
it's got to have a story to it.
Yeah.
I mean, not that the spoofs don't, but the spoofs are a great excuse to like, hey, this is one big sketch.
Yeah.
So you can just cram as many fucking jokes in here as possible.
Yeah.
And the thing, like with like Airplane and Naked Gun and all those, classics. Very,
Yeah.
very, very, very funny. But I don't know what it fucking is about Walk Hard. Almost every single joke makes me fucking die. It is so good.
Yeah. I think part of that is also like the parody, like exactly what you're saying, but like I'm going to piggyback on to like clarify. It's almost like you can put the story on the back burner. Like I, as an audience member, don't even have to care about it.
Because it's a parody. You know
Yeah.
where it's going.
Exactly. And I feel like even if you're not doing a parody, that's how you kind of have to do a comedy. Because like same thing with the producers, right? The idea of the producers is that Gene Wilder. Have you seen the original?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I haven't. Sorry.
He's like with the IRS, and he's neurotic, and he's going to do the books for this guy played by Zero Mosel, who has sex with old ladies to finance his plays.
Cool.
But he spends most of the money like on himself, just getting by, kind of a thing. Like he doesn't
Cool.
actually put the money into his production. And Gene Wilder's like, "Yo, this is illegal," and he's like, "Come on, buddy, cook the books for me." And for some reason, he says yes. And then Zero Mosel's like, "How about this? How about we make a movie for nothing, and we make a movie that's guaranteed to make nothing, but we get finance for like 4,000% of what it would actually kind of like cost or whatever. Take that money and fuck off to like Belize or something like that, right? So they do this. The movie goes on with like them trying to locate the script. They get it. They make it. Yada yada yada. It opens on Broadway. They watch the first half. People fucking hate it. It's called Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah.
It's a fucking script about how like Hitler was actually the good guy. Like it's like a Nazi defector that like they wrote the script and shit. They go to the bar at like halftime and they're drinking and they're listening to people talk about how shit this fucking play is. They're getting hammered. And again, you know where this is going.
Yeah.
Second half, they fucking love it. They end up getting caught for their scheme and going to jail. And it ends with them doing the same racket in prison as they're trying to have the prisoners like put on a play kind of a thing, and they're, you know, selling whatever, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, but it's one of those things where, like, again, it's a comedy. The ending is telegraphed from the beginning because it's not supposed to be gotcha, or interesting. It's supposed to focus on just being funny, right?
Yeah.
And again, like, the way that you think that movie's going to end is the funniest way it could end. The fact that they go to the bar thinking it's awful, and unbeknownst to them, while they're getting hammered, people are loving the movie across the street. That's so funny.
That's really good.
Anyways, 79 Scream.
Nice.
This one you're not going to like.
Uh-oh.
I have a very small justification that's obviously going to probably not be a big deal, and you're going to probably be pretty upset. But Friday the 13th.
No, I'm not upset about that.
One of the biggest things being, and I genuinely, I think it's kind of a big deal. I don't know. I really do. I think it would be shocking today. It does that great thing where the whole time, because of our cultural assumption about slasher films, you think it's a man doing it.
Yeah.
And then that fucking bait and switch, that it's Jason's mom.
You know, I also probably think it's a man.
Huh.
This is because before they take the mask off, it's very clearly a man.
81, American Psycho.
Nice. Haven't seen that in a good long time.
Yeah, it's such a wild ride. Again, it's one of those things where, like, what a weird fucking movie. I've read the book. What a weird fucking book. It's odd. It's very odd for your main character to be a guy who eats people's brains and stuff like that, and yet, I mean, he's like a psychopath. It's like Nightcrawler or whatever. Like, he's just such a bad guy, and yet, for some reason, you like him a little bit, kind of.
It is.
Like,
I think the thing with Nightcrawler and American Psycho is I think that those movies hinge almost entirely on the actor,
yeah.
which is
And also,
phenomenal.
fun fact, directed by a woman.
Yeah.
That's really neat. And honestly, like, super fucking rare for
Fun
some
fact,
reason.
when the book came out, you know, people were very upset about it.
Yeah, that's an upsetting book. It really is.
Yeah. I have it on Audible, and I think about listening to it all the time. I'm like, yeah, but I've read some of this, and
Yeah.
it's very upsetting.
Oh, it is. There's like 2 or 3 pages where like is just hanging out in his apartment eating dead people that he has like laying around, and he's like putting it in his microwave, and like it like blows up or something like that, and gets all over his microwave, and he's like cleaning it up and stuff, and I'm like, oof. But then there's this one point where like he has like what I can only call like probably like a panic attack, like in the middle of like Wall Street or Times Square or whatever, and like the whole like it's only 2 or 3 pages, but it's a chapter technically, is written without spaces or punctuation.
Wow.
And it's like this really neat thing where like you're like it makes you like you feel like you're having a panic attack. You're like reading it. It sounds so cheesy and like it wouldn't work, but it fucking works.
Yeah.
And it's really neat.
But fun fact, there's like a group of moms against it.
Yes.
Very much so. They're like trying to keep it out of out of bookstores and shit like that. Leader of the group, Christian Bale's stepmom.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This next one makes the list of movies that I would make you watch. I'm going to make a small list of the top 3 that I want to make you watch, which are, the final one's going to be the reveal. Dementia / Daughters of Horror, whichever one is the one that doesn't have the cheesy narration. Carnival of Souls, and The Old Dark House.
Okay.
I think it came out a year before, or like the same year as Frankenstein. And it's akin to something like Scream, in a sense. In the sense that The Old Dark House is actually a genre of horror films that by that point had already been played to death.
Yeah.
And even Rocky Horror Picture Show was an Old Dark House movie.
Yeah.
Where like people are traveling overnight, it's rainy, their car breaks down, and they stumble upon an old dark house. And inside the old dark house, weird shit happens, right? Something I don't like about this movie is, again, that Scream quality that it has, or whatever you want to call it, where like It's very focused on being funny and kind of being a comedy and stuff like that. But then the creepy shit is fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, there's these weird looking like brother sister, and they're like, you can't be here, you got to get out of here. And then they have like this mute, deaf, like brutish butler that shows up, and they're like, oh god, like you better not be here when he gets drunk, kind of a thing. And then like later on in the movie, they're like, oh my god, he did get drunk, and like, and they start talking about how like their dad's in the attic, but he's like locked. Or he's not locked up there, but he's up there, but we can't talk to him. But then, like, they go and talk to him, and he starts talking about their brother, like Ezekiel or something like that. They're like, you know, he's talking about himself, maybe in the third person. It's just creepy. It's just like, he's like, old Henry had 3 kids. 2 of them turned out normal, but one of them turned out bad, wrong. His name's Ezekiel, and we all keep him locked in the attic. And then, like, later on, someone's like, oh shit, the door to Ezekiel's room's unlocked. Ezekiel's out or whatever. And, like, he starts going on about, like, the Bible and shit. And he's, like, going to burn the house down with, like, everybody inside of it. And it's really an unsettling and creepy and fucked up, like, surreal, like, movie.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah, so that's a fantastic film. I love it.
Very interesting.
Love it. 83, Hiroshima Mon Amour, Hiroshima My Love. Another weird French New Wave movie, but not like Breathless. Different. Excuse me. I want to say it's Agnes Varda. And I want to say that it was actually, let me see. Oh, yes. So it's written by the same woman. I'm sorry, it's not Agnes Varda. It was actually directed by a man. What I'm thinking of is that it was written by the same woman who wrote and directed India Song, Marguerite Duras.
Okay.
Anyways, it was initially supposed to be like a fucking like documentary about the Japanese people and like Hiroshima and stuff like that, and like World War II and like the atrocities of like the bomb. But then it ended up being like kind of like this romance that she wrote about like a woman who's from France in Japan and like falls in love with this Japanese guy. But again, it's another movie where like I'm struck by it, right?
Yeah.
It strikes a chord in me. But much like Chinatown, gotta watch it again because there's some fucking shit I don't understand. With like, I think the woman was like locked in the basement for like her whole life or something. Like, there's just some weird shit going on that like I definitely don't understand. But making the list, I couldn't not put it on there. So let's keep blazing through.
I'm interested in that one too as well.
84 Kids.
Okay.
And I'm pairing this with 85 Requiem for a Dream. Have you seen Requiem for a Dream?
No.
Those are 2 movies that I like and equally dislike, kind of, but also really like. They're the 2 most upsetting movies I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah.
They are hard to watch. And I think they do, in my opinion, the kind of thing that, like, Saw tries to do, where it's like, man, I can't look at this. I can't believe you're making me watch it. But it's real life fucked up. You know what I mean? It's not like a human being killing another human being necessarily. It's just someone, like we've talked about kids before. Spoilers. Yeah. It ends with, like, just a brutal, disgusting, like, real rape scene.
Yeah.
Like, where, like, someone just passed out at a party and the dude just goes at it, kind of a thing. And, like, the crux of the film also, like, it's just, Harmony Korine, you're a maniac, is that, like, this woman had sex, well, not, I shouldn't say woman, this girl, I think they're underage. This girl has sex with a boy. The boy is spending the whole movie talking about how, like, man, I love fucking virgins. I love taking fucking girls' little pussy virginity. Like, they're gross, very gross. But the girl knows something he don't know. She knows that she's HIV positive.
Ooh.
She's only had sex with one person. He's got HIV. And he's spending the whole movie talking about, like, man, we're going to the party tonight, and I'm going to fuck another virgin. You know, so again, you have to watch that too. At the end, they make you watch that, and the whole time you fucking know. And, like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna spoil it. There's a point where she fucking walks into the room, sees it happening, knows it's too late, and just walks out of the room.
Oh,
God, it's
rough.
A fucked up movie. Fucked up.
I'm bummed now. I haven't seen the movie.
Watch it.
I will. I will.
Like,
but
it makes the list, and so does Requiem for a Dream, because, like, while it's disgusting and disturbing and it makes me uncomfortable, I can't believe a movie can make me feel that. You know what I mean? Like, that's... Yeah. I can't believe a movie can make me feel that.
There are a few movies I'm thinking for my list where it's like, no. It is only on this list because I left that movie going, fuck.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So Kids and Requiem for a Dream both fall into that category. I'm going to say 86. Maybe you'll be mad. I don't know. Birdman.
Oh, nice. I was thinking
Yeah.
about Birdman on mine as well.
87, maybe you'll be mad about this one, because this is kind of where it starts to get really kind of maybe subject. I don't know. These all made lists. These all made top 100 of the 90s, top 100 of the 2000, top 100 comedy. Swingers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Swingers, but no Star Wars. Okay.
Well, like I said, I wanted to have more of my flavor. I didn't
Yeah,
want
no,
it
I
to
get
necessarily
that.
just
Yeah.
be like Star Wars, Wizard of Oz. I know that Wizard of Oz made it, but like that one's one that like just holds such a special place in my heart. Like I
Yeah,
undeniably.
no, that's understandable.
But anyways, 88, Shaun of the Dead.
Nice.
89, Hot Fuzz. I
Nice.
think those are two fucking crazy. And you know what else? Both kind of spoofs.
No, absolutely spoofs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna put
All
probably
of the
not.
fucking comedy movies on here. Spoofs.
Yeah, I probably wasn't gonna put Shaun of the Dead, but I was for sure. Hot Fuzz is definitely
Yeah.
making my
I
list.
feel like I couldn't do one or the other. Those are two A+ movies on my book.
Yeah, I love Shaun of the Dead, but there's something about Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz really does have something special about it. Like, it's a movie I could watch every day of my life, and I wouldn't be upset. You know, when people are like, I could eat pizza every day. I could watch Hot Fuzz every day.
Yeah, no, we watched Hot Fuzz not too long ago. I think like a month or two ago. Mm-hmm. It was probably like 6 months at this point.
We also watched it all the time when we lived at the other house.
Did we?
We watched it drunk one time. We were doing a drinking game.
No,
associated
we
with
did
it.
the one where they drink, World's End. But anyway, we watched it a few months ago, and then 2 days later, I watched it again. I was like, "Fuck, I love this movie so much. I'm gonna watch Hot Fuzz again." 4 to 8 hours after seeing it.
Yeah. 90, A Clockwork Orange. 91,
That's 4.
you might be mad. That is. You might be mad about this one. Clue. You have to see Clue. You have to see Clue.
Okay.
And it's a spoof, too.
I guess.
No, it is. It's a spoof of like the whole detective, like who done it, murder in the house, the lights go out, and who did it. You know, it's like Knives Out.
Yeah.
Knives Out is also kind of a spoof.
Yeah, Clue.
It's a spoof of a trope that people used to take seriously that now is played up for a laugh. And another movie that just everybody does their part in that film, but really it's kind of carried on the back of Tim Curry
Yeah.
playing the butler. Yeah. Clue is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Even Alicia, like when I made her watch it on like our first date, she was like, "Okay, we'll watch Clue." And afterwards, she was like, "No, that's pretty fucking good." It's a really like it's so surprising because like I understand. I'm also sad that I'm putting a movie on my top 100 list that is an adaptation of a fucking board game. But it's just like the Lego movie. Like they did not have to treat it with the respect they treated it with. You know what I mean?
I haven't seen this,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna say, if I was a betting man,
Yeah.
you watch Clue, and this girl goes, "I like this guy, so I'm gonna tell him, yeah, all right, I really like Clue."
Also a movie that 100% made top 100 lists. Not even specific ones.
Clue?
Yeah.
Okay,
I swear.
whatever.
Also, 3 separate endings.
Yeah,
There's no canonical ending to it.
I do think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they'd break that up. I don't know if they'd do that different based on what movie theater you went to. Or
I
like
think it
what
was
DVD.
random. I think
Yeah.
it was random. Which whenever you saw it in the theater,
Yeah.
they would play a different ending.
On my DVD, I think you have the option to have either a random one or to play all 3.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyways, 92, Spirited Away.
Nice.
93, this one is a little egregious perhaps, but I think this is, in my opinion, probably the movie that I'm putting on here. This is another one that I think it did make lists of like top 100 indie, top 100 of 2000, but I think it's a sleeper. I really think it's a sleeper. I think it's something people really sleep on. The Darjeeling Limited.
Okay.
It's I'm pretty sure, if I were a betting man, I would say that I'm right. I think it's the only Wes Anderson movie that's not in the Criterion Collection. And it was also one of his movies that it was like, I think, made by like a bigger, quote unquote, studio than usual. I think it's like something like Fox Searchlight instead of being on like an even more obscure one or whatever it is. Anyways, so it's a little like tonally off and it feels strange. It doesn't feel entirely like a Wes Anderson movie. It kind of feels like he like co-wrote it with somebody else or something. But yeah, it's about 3 brothers. Their dad recently passed away, and they're all kind of grieving, right, dealing with it. And they go on this trip through India, and yeah, there's just like not on the level of kids, but there's just something like fucked that kind of happens like halfway through it that like just caught me way off guard. Even before that, I was really into it, though. This whole thing where, like, 3 separate people are all grieving the same thing, but in their own ways. And, you know, it's also Wes Anderson, yada, yada, yada. But then that fucked things happen. And there are things I don't like about it. But it's one of those things where it's probably my second favorite Wes Anderson movie other than The Royal Tenenbaums. Really, really a neat one. 94, The Princess Bride. 95, Big Trouble in Little China. 96. This is a movie that I don't necessarily like entirely care for, but I love and adore and admire. Don't really like or even remember a lot of it, but
You don't care for it, but you love it and you adore it.
I do. You're gonna understand what I mean. I think Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
I think it really holds a special place because again, it's one of those things where it's like movies can also be this, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a weird one. 97, Memento.
Nice.
Memento made it. That was one of the things that I mentioned when I was talking about The Dark Knight. I said, I don't even know if Memento would make it. But no, Memento makes it. Memento definitely makes it. 98, The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And again, kind of a spoof because it kind of does the North by Northwest thing, right? It's like mistaken identity, noir, right?
Yeah.
But it's a comedy, kind of making fun of that a little bit. But at the same time, like, always gets me as if it were North by Northwest or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the Coen
Yeah.
brothers are fucking maniacs.
So good.
Like it's so funny at the same time, and it's obviously, like I said, like kind of spoofing, making a farce out of, right? And yet, I can almost respect it as like a legitimate noir, you know? 99. Well, I guess Wes Anderson gets 3 because Bottle Rocket did actually end up
Very
making
cool.
it. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, we watched it together.
Yeah, Bottle Rocket is really neat. And then 100, I said fuck it, and I said go ahead. Reservoir Dogs also gets a spot.
Nice.
So there you go. That's my top 100 list.
It's a very respectable list.
Yeah.
I respect it. I respect you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I respect you too.
Well, you haven't seen my list yet.
Like I said, I'm not going to take you to task. It's also one of those things where it just inherently has to be subjective. You know, at first, like, I really thought, like, I'm about to be objective up in this bitch. I'm going to hit him with the heavy hitters on, like, 20 movies. And I was like, well, I guess there's only, like, 20 movies I really deeply am passionate about. After that, there's just movies that I'm like, I really respect that. I really love that. That was really neat. That was really cool. Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna be so embarrassed with mine. I feel like I'm gonna be at 15 and we're gonna be sitting here and I'm gonna be like, Toy Story 2.
That's still respectable. There are a lot of movies like that. Like I said, like I legitimately thought like should Monsters Inc. end up on here?
Yeah, but I'll be like Toy Story 2 and you're like, wow, all 4 Toy Story movies are on your list.
No, that's all good. Like I said, I think the most helpful thing is like really do try to seek out like best of the 90s, best of the because there's gonna be a lot that like you just don't even remember having seen, you know. And then when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, fuck, like The Sixth Sense. God damn. When's the last time you saw The Sixth Sense?
I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
I have no.
I'm gonna spoil one thing for you. And I
He's
hope
dead.
I
I get
hope
it.
it doesn't water down like the actual scene. But my favorite scene in the movie is that what's the little kid's name? Macaulay Culkin. What's his?
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, Haley Joel Osment. He's got this thing in his mom's apartment where he's made this little tent that's just a shrine with like all these fucking like religious pictures and like crucifixes everywhere. And throughout most of the movie, it's established as his like safe place, right? And this thing that he goes where like no matter how fucked up the thing that he saw is or like whatever's in the apartment right now that he can see is he can't be hurt there. And then there's just this fucking scene where he's sitting in it and the ghost knocks it all down and I fucking am crying right now thinking about it. It's such a fucking scary movie. That part specifically, I mean, like just God, right? You know, just have the rug pulled out from under you, and like this whole thing where you like think he's so safe, and then that happens, and you're like, oh fuck.
I am, no joke, still upset about the ending of Kids. Like I've been thinking about it since you said it.
I'm sorry because I feel like I might have undermined like the punch the movie's gonna have if you ever do watch it.
I
like,
doubt it. I'm so upset right
like
now.
I said, yeah, like watching it, like I legit held Alicia while she cried for like 5 minutes after the movie was over.
Oh no!
We watched it on VHS, so it was just static. As we're sitting in the room at like 11 o'clock at night, as I held her, she wasn't saying anything. I was like, damn, like yeah, it was upsetting, but like we've only been dating for like 4 months. This is awkward.
Yeah. You're like, you want to watch Shark Tales?
Yeah. Yeah, we legit actually did put something else on. I can't remember what, but she was like, we gotta watch something else. Gotta cleanse the palate. We can't just like go to bed now or whatever. We gotta watch something else.
Have you ever seen I Spit on Your Grave?
No, but I want to. You talking about the original or the remake?
Both.
Both? Neither. But that's another movie that honestly, like I've heard The Last House on the Left is like as upsetting as that movie is.
I saw the new one.
Uh-huh.
I think I saw the actress on like Attack of the Show or something like that.
Okay.
And I think they give it like a brief overview of what it is. Like something happens to her and then she kills all these guys.
Uh-huh.
And I watched it.
Oh, I think she gets raped, bro.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
Like I said, I saw it. And it is fucking I mean, again, I was maybe 12 when I saw this.
Yeah.
So it probably sunk in my brain way more, but fucking brutal, dude. She gets like gang raped, including by a mentally retarded person who they like the other guys force into doing it as well.
Yeah, yikes. The only reservation I have, which doesn't upset me, because I'm sure you could probably almost say that about Kids or Requiem for the Dream, it's one of those movies that like they're like, has exploitation gone too far? Because I also don't feel like this movie says anything about what it makes everybody watch. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
But I do want to see it. I do want to see it, and I do want to see Last House on the Left. So, anyways, there's my top on our list, and I'm pretty sure we've probably gone on for way too long as it stands. What did we end up clocking in at?
When we're at 40 minutes and you said, "Oh, I can clip through this thing."
Yeah.
That was 1 hour ago. We're at 140 right now.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
No,
Thanks
you're
for
fine.
having the
It's totally
patience
fine.
to listen to this.
If you do, there's no.
Well, no, you specifically.
Oh yeah, no, I'll listen
2
to
hours
this.
of listening to me talk about my 100 favorite movies.
Oh, you mean currently right now?
Yeah, I'm saying
Oh, no.
that's
Chris?
yeah.
It's my favorite thing in the world. Next to watching movies, I love listening to Chris talk about movies.
Okay. Was it interesting?
Yeah, I had a good time.
Okay. I'm sorry. What?
Okay, so brief intermission to check our house for murderers.
Yeah, we just heard the scariest noise I've ever heard. Okay, well, we checked.
We hope we're good.
Yeah.
We're good, knock on wood.
Yeah.
If this
Fucked
is
up if someone knocked back.
Yeah, if this is the last you hear from us, there's a man in our house.
In the attic, specifically.
Or a woman.
I'm shaking. Anyways, all right. Thanks for listening.
Hopefully see you again.
Yes.
With my list.
Top 100.
If I do it.
If you do it,
I'll
dude.
do it. I'll
Come
do it.
on.
I'll absolutely do
Yeah,
it.
there you go. If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,